The talk you are about to hear is by Sensei Richard von Sturmer. So this is Monday, the 9th of September, day 3 of our 7-day session. And we'll resume reading from Nagarjuna's Verses from the Centro, translated by Stephen Batchelor. And yesterday we looked at this central teaching of Nagarjuna's on emptiness and how emptiness is perceived as being positive in Buddhism. It's a matrix or a womb out of which everything comes forth. As in the Zen capping phrase, emptiness is an infinite storehouse with flowers, the moon, and tall towers. Thich Nhat Hanh says, true emptiness is not emptiness. True emptiness is true being. True emptiness is not emptiness. True emptiness is true being. True being just open to the world. One more quote from an old Chinese master, Yung Chia. The one who clings to vacancy or emptiness, neglecting the world of things, escapes from drowning but leaps into the fire. The one who clings to vacancy, neglecting the world of things, escapes from drowning but leaps into the fire. Yesterday we mentioned how Zen teachers warn about dwelling in emptiness. One master calls this the poison of emptiness. This is believing oneself to be empty and therefore somehow above or unconnected to whatever happens in the world. Why protest? It's all empty. Everything is just as it should be. Don't worry, be empty. It's better to be uninvolved. Oh, the coronavirus, COVID. Oh, it doesn't concern me. And of course, this is just delusion. Batchelor quotes the Buddha who says, whatever depends on conditions is said to be empty. Those who know emptiness are conscientious. Whatever depends on conditions is said to be empty. Those who know emptiness or experience emptiness are conscientious. That's an important point. They take care. If a teacher has a whiff of pride about them, if they claim to be empty, then that's a real warning sign. Batchelor continues, knowing emptiness does not miraculously grant one knowledge of what is the right or wrong thing to do when faced with a moral dilemma. The freedom of emptiness makes one aware of the freedom of choice. For in emptiness one is free, even if only momentarily, from the prompting of fixations that provoke compulsive acts. As the grip of self-centeredness is eased, so also does emphatic awareness of the suffering of others emerge. The silence of emptiness allows one to hear more clearly the cries of the world. Let's just read it again, it's an important point. As the fixed grip of self-centeredness is eased, so also does an emphatic awareness of the suffering of others emerge. The silence of emptiness allows one to hear more clearly the cries of the world, as Kanon Bodhisattva does. Think of the great freedom that comes with emptiness, of Bodhidharma, our first Zen ancestor, who just undertook a long voyage from India to China, nothing in his mind, just going to China. And then he came to the imperial palace in the southern kingdom and met Emperor Wu. And Emperor Wu had heard, of course, that Bodhidharma was a great sage. And Emperor Wu, many of us know the story, Emperor Wu had done a lot of good to promote Buddhism by sponsoring thousands of monks and building numerous temples. And he was proud of himself. And so he asked Bodhidharma when they met, I've done all this great work. What merit have I gained? And Bodhidharma just replied, vast emptiness. And Bodhidharma just replied, no merit, which is a shock to the emperor. And so the emperor came back to him. What is the fundamental teaching of Buddhism? And Bodhidharma replied, vast emptiness and nothing holy. He just wiped away all thought of merit, doing good. Just vast emptiness. He wanted to dissolve the emperor's fixations about doing good deeds, supporting monks, building temples. He wanted to dissolve his pride. But of course, the emperor didn't get the message. So he said to Bodhidharma, you call yourself a priest. Who are you? And Bodhidharma, speaking out of his great emptiness, his empty mind, uttered the three most famous words in Zen, I don't know. And that was the end of their audience. And Bodhidharma travelled to Shaolin Temple, and the story goes on from there. So what I'd like to do now is to read the verses from the Centre. Yesterday we focused on Stephen Batchelor's fine introduction to the work, and now we'll read more of the verses themselves. And like a Zen master, Nagarjuna continually pulls the rug from under us. He short-circuits our programmed ways of thinking and challenges our conceptual and rational way of looking at the world. As we mentioned yesterday, Batchelor calls Nagarjuna the poet of emptiness. And his verses, his poetry, is the best way for us to appreciate his paradoxical teaching. We can just imagine ourselves back in India in the 2nd century Common Era. things would be a lot simpler. No, no social media, no being barraged by news and updates and knowing all that was going on in all parts of the world at all time. That didn't exist. Sure, Nagarjuna was very much involved in philosophical debates, and there are different schools of thought in India at that time. Nagarjuna created his own school, the Madhyamika, the middle way. But still, to get somewhere, people just walked or rode in a bullock cart. Dusty roads. The senses weren't overloaded. So he concentrates on just very basic things to underline his teaching. And the first, his verses are categorized in simple subjects. So the first is walking. I do not walk between the step already taken and the one I'm yet to take, which both are motionless. Is walking not the motion between one step and the next? What moves between them? Could I not move as I walk? If I move when I walk, there would be two motions, one moving me and one my feet. Two of us stroll by. Walking does not start in steps taken or to come, or in the act itself. Where does it begin? Always with Nagarjuna there's this questioning, where does walking begin? Before I raise a foot, is there motion, a step taken or to come, whence walking could begin? What is gone? What moves? What is to come? Were walking and the walker one, I would be unable to tell them apart. If they were different, there would be walkers who do not walk. So he's playfully circling round this concept of walking, just walking. Were walkers and walker one, I would be unable to tell them apart. Were they different, there would be walkers who do not walk. So always, again, with Nagarjuna, not this, not that. Is walking not the motion between one step and the next? What moves between them? Could I not move as I walk? And the key question, what moves? Take this up in rest periods, just going for a walk outside, placing one foot in front of the other, sticking with your practice. Just this activity of walking, being in the present moment, just walking, just the wonder of walking. No before, no after. Just one step in front of the other. Quite a long time ago, I don't think influenced by Nagarjuna, I wrote a long poem about walking. I just want to read a a few extracts from the poem, just because it chimes in with Nagarjuna. Walking in gumboots, walking in sports shoes, walking in slippers, walking in bare feet, walking to exercise the dog, walking because you're overweight, walking because there are no more taxis and the last bus has gone, walking around the crater of a volcano, walking across the surface of a frozen lake, walking along the borderline, walking past a perimeter fence, walking on asphalt, walking on gravel, walking through mud, walking over the cracked earth, walking for our ancestors, walking for those as yet unborn, walking to gain some perspective, walking to get to the corner store, walking, just walking, just the marvelous activity of walking. The next section, again, simple subject, seeing. If my eyes cannot see themselves, how can they see something else? Were there no trace of something seen, how could I see at all? Neither seeing nor unseeing see. Just as a child is born from father and mother, so consciousness springs from eyes and colourful shapes. Without these eyes, how could I know consciousness, contact, feeling and thirst, clinging, evolving, birth, aging and death? And here, of course, he's referring to what we went into a little bit yesterday, dependent co-arising, the 12 links in the chain of dependent co-arising that keep us in this world of birth and death, endlessly turning. And just to recap, the 12 links are ignorance, karmic formations, consciousness, mind and body, the 6 senses, feeling, craving, clinging, becoming, birth, and the 12th, old age and death. So, if my eyes cannot see themselves, how can they see anything else? Were there no trace of something seen, how could I see it all? So seeing, so our eye, the act of seeing, and the object of sight all arise together. They're all dependent on one another. They're not separate at all. The same for the other senses. The ear, the act of hearing, and the object of hearing, pheasant calling. They all arise together. They can't be separated. Just as a child is born from father and mother, so consciousness springs from eyes and colourful sights. We looked at that yesterday. Consciousness, the 4th link, gives rise to mind and body and gives rise to the 6 senses. So consciousness springs, arises from eyes and colourful shapes. The next one is body. I have no body apart from parts which form it. I know no parts apart from a body. A body with no parts would be unformed. A part of my body apart from my body would be absurd. I cannot say my body is like its parts. I cannot say it is something else. Feelings, perceptions, drive, consciousness are like this body in every way. I have no body apart from parts which form it. I know no parts apart from a body. This body is a whole entity. Who knows exactly where the foot ends and the lower leg begins, or where the hand ends and the wrist begins, the wrist and the arms? Sure, they can be severed, but they're really just a whole. That's the miracle of a body. Everything working together, nothing separate. A body with no parts would be unformed. A part of my body, apart from my body, would be absurd. There's a famous dialogue that parallels this teaching, case 8 of the Mumon Khan. Master Getan said to a monk, Sichuan, the first wheelmaker in ancient China, made a cart whose wheels had 100 spokes. If you took off the wheels and removed the axle, what would it be? You took everything that comprises a cart away, what would it be? If you took every part of my body away, everything, limbs, torso, head, what would I be? And then this verse, feelings, perceptions, drives, consciousness are like this body in every way. This refers to another important Buddhist teaching of the 5 skandhas that make up our illusory self. And 5 skandhas are body, sensations, perceptions, mental formations, and consciousness. They're the components that make up our limited self. What is this true self that is no self? Who am I when all my attributes, my physical form, and my mental components are removed? Some people say, oh, I'm my body. I'm a bodybuilder. My body's beautiful. This is who I am. But that's a delusion. Other people say, well, my mental formations, my memories make up who I am. My childhood, my intuitions. These are who I am. That's illusory too. Or my consciousness. I think, therefore I am. My mind. Yes, that's who I am. Again, that's an illusion. Kalo Rinpoche says this about the skandhas, the 5 skandhas. In our present human condition, there are 5 skandhas. The physical existence plus the 4 purely mental states of sensation, perception, mental formation, and full discursive consciousness, which is able to decide this is a sound, this is a form, and to arrive at value judgments, this is good, this is bad, and so on. The word skanda literally means a heap or a pile. And one understanding of the term is that as long as we have physical existence, we not only have these 5 aggregates, but also a heap of trouble. Next section. Title is Already. I am already here. So, am I already here before I see and taste and feel? If not, how could I see and taste and feel? How can I know if I'm already here or not? If I were here without them, without the senses, they could be here without me. I reveal them and they reveal me. How can I be here without them? How can they be here without me? Everything arises together. Our body, our consciousness, our sensations, perceptions, awareness, everything arises together. I am not already here before experience is such. Seeing reveals just the seer, tasting just the taster, feeling just the feeler. If I to whom these things belong cannot be found, how can they be found? I do not precede them, nor am I with them, nor do I follow them. Again, Nagarjuna's way of taking everything away. If I to whom these things belong cannot be found, how can they be found? I do not precede them, nor am I with them, nor do I follow them. It all boils down to the koan, who am I? Who am I? Another koan very similar. What was my face before my parents were born? What was my face before my parents were born? Let go of existence and non-existence. And what remains? What has always been there? Next section is life. And so often Nagarjuna begins with a question. Is life what drives me? Whether constant or fleeting, drives are not alive like life. How am I alive? When I cannot be found inside this mind or body, who is there to be alive? If I survive by clinging on to thoughts and feelings, how could I evolve? I am free. I cling no more. Liberation is mine. The greatest clinging is to cling like this. What do you think of a freedom that never happened? What do you make of a life that won't go away? So, is there life that drives me? Life force, whether constant or fleeting, drives are not alive like life. How am I alive? I'm not my desires. I'm not my aversions. Desires and aversions, wanting something, wanting a person, wanting a better job, wanting to go somewhere else, or our aversions, detesting something, disliking a person, being dissatisfied with our job or our family. These are main causes of our suffering. But drives are not alive like life. Our desires and our aversions are not our true life. Okay then, how am I alive? When I cannot be found inside this body or mind, who is there to be alive? Again, who? This who. If I survived by clinging on to thoughts and feelings, how could I evolve? How could I be free? There's nothing to attain, nothing to cling on to. The ninth link of dependent co-arising is grasping or attachment or clinging. It arises from the eighth link, desire or craving. So our desires and craving give rise to our grasping, our attachments, to clinging. And this is the link, the two links that really, in classical Buddhist thought, keep us on the wheel of birth and death. It's the link with craving and desire that leads to grasping and attachment. And Bhikkhu Bodhi, a modern Theravada practitioner, he says this: the chain of dependent co-arising is broken at the link between feeling and craving. Feeling arises necessarily because the body acquires through past craving, is subject to the maturation of past karma. However, if one does not delight in feeling, craving will not have the opportunity to arrive and set off reactions of dislike and like that provide further fuel for the round, and thus the round will come to an end. So he points out that actually the important part is the break between feeling and craving. Not to give in to our cravings. Next one is self. Were mind and matter me, I would come and go like them. If I were something else, they would have nothing to say about me. What is mine when there is no me? Were self-centeredness eased, I would not think of me and mine. There would be no one here to think them. What is inside is me. What is outside is mine. When these thoughts end, compulsion stops, repetition ceases, freedom dawns. Fixations spawn thoughts that provide compulsive acts. Emptiness dissolves fixations. When things dissolve, there's nothing left to say. The unborn and unceasing are already free. It is all at ease, free from fixations, incommunicable, inconceivable, indivisible. You are not the same as or different from conditions on which you depend. You are neither severed from nor forever fused with them. This is the deathless teaching of Buddhas who care for the world. Going back, you are not the same as or different from conditions on which you depend. You are neither severed from nor forever fused with them. This is the deathless teaching of Buddhas who care for the world. Everything is fluid. Of course, we're affected by our environment, what's happening in the world. So we're not cut off from the world. We respond. Again, going back to Kuan Yin, to the cries of the world. But we're not fused with them. We're not caught up in thoughts about what's going on and anxieties about going on. We just respond, but we're not caught up. We're not fused with them. This is to find the balance. Were mind and matter me, I would come and go like them. I would be impermanent like them. If I was something else, they would say nothing about me. Still got a character, as we said before. Each one of us is unique. Thoughts are impermanent, feelings are impermanent, and yet they make up who I am. So again, not falling into one or the other, and seeing into the self that is no self. When things dissolve, there's nothing left to say. The unborn and unceasing are already free. And great freedom, getting a true glimpse of emptiness, goes beyond words. There's nothing left to say. The unborn and unceasing are already free. Unborn is a central teaching of a 14th century Zen master, Bankei. So I'd just like to read a bit from Bankei, moving away from the rather heady Nagarjuna for a moment. Bankei says, I was still a young man when I came to discover the principle of the unborn and its relationship to thought. I began to tell others about it. What we call a thought is something that has already fallen one or more removes from the living reality of the unborn. Or you could say it's also from the living reality of Mu. If you would just live in the unborn, there wouldn't be anything for me to tell you about it. And you wouldn't have to be here listening to me. But because of the unbornness and marvelous illuminating power inherent in the Buddha mind, It readily reflects all things that come along and transforms itself into them. In the unborn, all things are perfectly resolved. While you're listening to me speak, if a crow cawed or a sparrow chirped, you would have no difficulty knowing it was a crow or a sparrow, even without giving a thought to listening to it, because you are listening by means of the unborn. Okay. We have this unborn Buddha mind. We don't need to search for it anywhere else. It's there all the time. It's walking with us. When we walk, it's seen with us when we see. For Bankei, everything was this unborn. Marvelously illuminating power inherent in the Buddha mind. It readily reflects all things that come along, like a mirror. Receiving the teachings of Zen masters like Bankei helps to resolve the conundrums created by Nagarjuna. So last one for Bankei. You may step aside to the right or to the left, because you have made up your mind to do that. But still, the movement of your feet, one step after another, doesn't occur because you think of it. When you're walking along naturally, you're walking in the harmony of the unborn. When you go outside in a break, you go for a walk, you're walking along naturally. You're walking in the harmony of the unborn. And to finish up, I'd like to take up a koan. Many koans sort of point towards emptiness. Here's one from the Book of Serenity, case number 100. Langya Zhao's Mountains and Rivers. A monk asked Master Langya Zhao, the original state is pure and clear. How is it that mountains, rivers, and the great earth suddenly appear? Langya Zhao said, the original state is pure and clear. How is it that mountains, rivers, and the great earth suddenly appear? So he seems to be just repeating the monk's question. But there's a lot more here. Just a little background. Langya's father was the governor of Hengyang, a city in Hunan province. His father died there, and Langya, fulfilling his filial obligations, carried his father's casket back to his native home. While passing through Lizhu, also in Hunan province, Langya climbed up Mount Yao to see the ancient monastery there. He was surprised to find that the monastery seemed completely familiar, as though he'd lived there before. Because of this, he left home and became a monk. So we don't know much more about Langya. Here's a dialogue. A monk asked Langya, "What is Buddha?" Langya said, "Copperhead, iron forehead." The monk said, "What does that mean?" Langya said, "Bird beak, fish gills." One more dialogue. A monk asked, "How is it before the lotus comes out of the water?" that means decoding. It means, how about before enlightenment, before awakening? Langya said, the cat wears a paper hat. The monk asked, how is it after the lotus comes out of the water? How is it after awakening? Langya said, the dog runs when it sees the whip. So we have these words of the monk. The monk asked Master Langya, the original state is pure and clear. How is it that mountains, rivers, and the great earth suddenly appear? Langya said, the original state is pure and clear. How is it that mountains, rivers, and the great earth suddenly appear? How is it that all these things arise out of emptiness? Centuries later, a woman came to Zen Master Hakuin and said, mountains, rivers and trees are all luminous. How marvelous! How marvelous! Hakuin said, how about the shit in the toilet? And the woman said, oh, don't you know about that, Roshi? Which is a good comeback. So, returning to emptiness. In another work, Nagarjuna teaches, all things are realized when emptiness is realized. Nothing is realized when emptiness is not realized. Going to the mirror and reflecting how it seems that the teacher is just reflecting the monk's question. A mirror is wonderful. It's clear and bright. In Sesshin, the remaining days of Sesshin, our mind can scour our mind round after round, and our mind can become clear and bright like a mirror. In the old days, a piece of glass, round or square, had one side painted black or silver to turn the glass into a mirror. Now, as you pass through the days of Sesshin, imagine that your mirror mind has this backing removed, peeling off the paint or the silver, the back of the mirror. Nothing's reflected. The mind's completely transparent. Completely transparent. This is where you meet Mu, or the breath, or the practice of shikantaza. Completely transparent. Its final capping phrase. Emptiness has no back or front.
The teaching you have received is offered freely. If you would like to make a donation to support the continuation of this podcast service or learn more about practice opportunities at the Auckland Zen Centre, please visit www.aucklandzen.org.nz.